Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing, the video broadcast series that features the powerful women from the shop floor all the way to the C-suite who are changing the world through engineering and manufacturing. Today, I have Kimberly Wolf, who does leadership coaching as well as manufacturing consulting, and she also has a short video series on Masters of Manufacturing. Hello, Kim. How are you doing?
Hi, Megan. Happy Friday to you.
Yes, I'm excited. I always love Fridays because I get a chance to talk to some really amazing people within engineering and manufacturing. And I always like to start off the episode with some background information about yourself. So can you guide us through your journey to manufacturing? How did you get involved and what sort of things inspired you to join the sector?
My gosh, it seems like so long ago when I started this career journey, and actually it was a long time ago. It's over 30 years now. But when I was in high school and I was trying to figure out how I wanted to spend the rest of my life, which is always a very daunting thing for 17 and 18-year-old kids to have to do. But I was very much influenced and inspired by my mother. She became a single mother in her early 30s, and she did not have a degree. She had left school to have her family when she was very young, and all of a sudden she found herself single and needed to support 3 children. And so she went back to school full time, and she was working full time nights. And then, oh, by the way, she had these 3 children that she was canning vegetables for and sewing Halloween costumes and all of those things that moms do. And I saw how inspired that she was to do it. It was exhausting for her. It was a really tough time for her, but she did it. And when I saw that and saw that journey that she had gone through, I knew when I picked my career of choice that I needed to have something that I could support my children on. And so I didn't necessarily look at, what is the thing that I love? I looked at what is the thing that I could do well at and be able to support my family. And so engineering came to mind. I had really fallen in love with science in high school. I had a biology teacher and a chemistry teacher that I just adored. And so really ended up loving science. I just wasn't sure what branch of science that I would go into. I started off actually at Penn State in chemical engineering, and I was in that for a couple of semesters. And I realized that really the thing that I liked about engineering was when I was able to see how things worked. It's funny, I see the background of our screen here today is some gears. And that's what I love. I love seeing sprockets and gears and how do they work and what makes things move. And so once I found mechanical engineering, I really knew that was something that I loved doing. In addition to, I thought would provide, a very secure career for me. And it's a decision that I have never, ever questioned. At graduation, I was only one of a couple of women who graduated with a mechanical engineering degree that year. And now I see so many more women who are attracted to engineering and going into it and really having so many choices, because with engineering, as you know, there's so many choices of what you can do on your journey. And I've been able to explore several of those over the last 30 years.
Yeah, because there's not just mechanical engineering. There's also like electrical and chemical, and there just seems to be more and more added on. I talked with someone the other day, and she's a chemical engineer, and just everything that she got involved with aerospace and then the gas and oil industry. She had a lot of experience doing a lot of different things, which was really, really cool. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity within the engineering space.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that's it. At the beginning, it was a little bit overwhelming of where do I, really put my attention. And it really, once I found mechanical where I could see how things worked, electrical was this stuff that was happening out there and I couldn't see. Chemical, same thing, but mechanical, I could put my hands on it and touch it and see it. And so that's really when I knew that I had found a connection with what I wanted to do.
So when you started after you graduated college and you started working within the sector, one of the things that I found interesting, compared to other stories that I've heard, is you didn't really have a negative experience. You just showed up and people respected who you were, and like trusted your experience, and you were able to be really successful and worked with some really well-known companies in major ways. So, can you explain or talk about who some of your big mentors were, or some of your favorite moments going through that journey? Because I've met some women, and I myself have experienced some of the negative side of it, but I've met some women who had a really hard time at certain situations moving up just because of some of the negativity that they experienced. So it's good to hear the other side of that, especially when you started, because it seemed like there were a lot of stories back then that weren't so good as the experience that you had. So can you tell us who like you worked with, who are some of your favorite people and your main mentors, and some of the stuff that you worked on?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I people ask me that question a lot, is, how were you treated? How did you break through the glass ceiling? And I don't have any stories to tell that I had to break through anything. My role, I thought, was just to be as good an engineer or as good a manager or as good a leader as I could possibly be, man or woman. I never made a big deal out of being, the only
Mhm.
woman sitting at the table, which was often the case. But I just kind of carried on and did the best job that I could do. So I do understand that. I think I was very fortunate to work for companies that really respected what I had to bring, and really treated me well. I recognize there are some women out there who don't necessarily have those same types of experiences. And I think there's ways to get through that. In fact, I work with some people, some women who I do leadership coaching with, of how to deal with some of those situations. So I certainly know they exist. I've just been very fortunate to not have had that in my career. And to your point, I've had some amazing mentors. Really, one of the very first mentor stories that I have remembered all of these years. I had been in engineering for about a year, and one
Mhm.
of the senior engineers in the department, he said, come walk with me. And we took a walk down the hallway, and we ended up in the machine shop. And he said, I just want you to look around at the people in this machine shop. And he said, they are either going to make or break your career. And he said,
Interesting.
if you treat, it was a little scary, but he said, if you treat them with respect and you ask them questions and you involve them in your designs, they will turn somersaults to make sure that your designs are successful. On the other hand, if you go out there waving your engineering diploma and tell them to do something because you said so, they will, because that's their job, but they will know with 100% certainty that that design is going to fail. So people will go above and beyond if you respect them and treat them like a colleague. And that was
Absolutely.
really one of the best pieces of advice that I have ever gotten. Um, and I've tried to remember that through my whole career. I have always really prided myself on treating everybody the same. Whether it's somebody on, third shift that comes in part-time to clean, or whether it's the CEO of a company, I treat everybody the same. I grew up that way. And then when I moved into my professional career and had this senior engineer that told me about that, it was a lesson. Like I said, I still remember that conversation that we had so many years ago. And
And
then since go ahead, sorry.
that's like so basic too, just common human decency and treating people the way that you want to be treated. And it reminds me of a story with my dad. I actually worked with my dad a really long time ago in a tooling machine shop, and he was the president. Uh, Probably would not do that again because we're very similar in personality. So it's, but he has a lot of time. I did see a different side of him though, and I remember having a chat with him, and he is like, from the person that's the janitor to the one cleaning the bathrooms, we all play a part in the success of this business, and you need to know if they're okay. And he made it a point to walk around the shop floor every day and ask people how they were doing if he wasn't traveling. But anytime he was in that shop, he walked around every single day and asked people how they were doing, including myself. Like, he included me in the equation, and it made a difference. People liked that he did that, and they respected him a lot more. I don't think a lot of people liked him, but they respected him. So I see where that's a good advice to give.
Yeah, I totally would agree with that. And I think that that does take an effort to get out of your office and kind of get out amongst, everybody and talk to people. But that's where you build the trust, I think. And if it's sincere, now I've seen some people who do those Gemba walks and it's just because it was on their calendar for the day. And people can really
Yeah.
tell if it's an insincere contact that somebody is making with you. But if you sincerely are investing yourself as a leader in the team, my gosh, people will generally, just do anything to make the
Mhm.
business successful. And that to me is really that sweet spot, when you've hit that sweet spot and you're able to, as a whole team, successfully meet, some stretch goals. So I remember my mother had shared a quote with me years and years ago about people may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's something that I really have taken to heart. I have it posted above my desk and have for years and years right next to my computer, because I want people to realize that we're all in this together. We're either going to sink or swim together, and I respect what everybody brings to the table.
That's You sound like you have a great mom.
Oh,
Such good advice.
she's wonderful. She's definitely been a big influence on me. And like I said, I've had so many great mentors. The senior engineer, I've had my mother. I had a senior global vice president of global operations at Campbell Soup, who was a mentor for me. And my gosh, she just was so inspiring in allowing me to ask questions of him about business acumen and how you conduct yourself and how do you motivate other people in a relationship that was full of trust. And I find when I'm doing leadership coaching now, that's so important to have that safe
Yeah.
space. And I had that with my mentors as well, including this person who was at a pretty senior level within the Campbell Soup organization, but I knew he was a safe place and that he would really share experiences with me that would really help me to weave through my own professional journey.
So I want to get to that point later on, but I wanted to ask you, so what was a day in a life? What did that look like for your position? What were some of the things that you were responsible to doing when you were in that space? Because right now I know you do a lot of leadership coaching and you do a lot of manufacturing consulting. So when you were actually in the field working for different companies, what did a day in a life look like for you?
Well, when I first got out of university, I had two job offers when I was graduating. One of them was with a plant engineer with Eveready Battery Company, so a consumer goods company. And the plant engineer role really involved designing equipment and everything that goes with it out on the production
Okay.
floor making batteries. The other position that I had been offered was a design engineer. And so it was with an automotive company and it was working kind of back in those days, we had drafting boards. So I was working in a room full of drafting boards doing design work, and two very, very different types of opportunities. And I needed to decide which way my engineering career was really going to go. And I chose the one with Eveready Battery Company because I really wanted to work with people.
Mhm.
And some engineers are not that way. They love doing the design, they love being at the computer all day. I'm not that person. I really want to go out and talk to the people and find out, what's working with the designs that I've had, what's not working, putting together preventive maintenance programs, putting together operator training. How are we going to measure? What are the KPIs going to be for that particular equipment to make sure that it's running successfully? All of those things I really learned so much in that position that I was able to translate when I started to move into an engineering and maintenance manager role and operations manager role, ultimately became a plant manager. And I use all of those skills that I had really learned as an engineer, which is pretty amazing segue.
Mhm.
And then as I continued on with my career, I kind of moved into more of a senior role as a vice president of operations and a director of operations. And in those roles, I found the thing that I really loved doing was developing people. Budget process, not so much, not really a little dry. There were things about it that, of course, with every role, you have to do it. But what really got me jazzed was developing people and seeing people succeed beyond what they even thought that they could do. So I started to move into doing some teaching as a professor at Conestoga College. And I worked there for
Okay.
about 5 years. I developed the curriculums, food processing technology. I taught a couple of math classes, which I love to keep my fingers in with doing math, and an operations management program. So that's where I really realized this is what I really love. And so all these experiences that I've had with the mentors that I've had, with the type of childhood that I had growing up, and the values that I learned there, and then everything that I learned as an engineer, really culminated in what I do now, which is coaching and consulting and really investing myself to help others to succeed. And I like to say, I know sometimes when I say I'm a consultant, people are like, oh, consultants come in and sometimes they have these wonderful ideas and they drop this, 6-inch 3-ring binder on somebody's desk and say, go do that and you'll be good. I was on the receiving end of that a couple of times, and that's no fun. What I really like to do is to work with them, work with the companies, work with the individuals to implement solutions, to coach people to learn new tools that they have in their toolbox,
Mhm.
so that they feel more confident, and then ultimately can lead that team, towards success, whether it's using lean tools or whatever that it might be. So my days have really varied from the very beginning when I was an engineer to, what I do today. But I've been very blessed that all of the things that I've done have really rolled up into where I am today.
So I really like the conversation that you were, the situation that you brought up before, where you had that one mentor who really provided a safe space for you to ask questions. I'm sure if you made a mistake, he allowed you to fail forward and learn from that mistake. And tying that into with what you're doing with your leadership coaching and some of the stuff that you're doing with your consulting, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that these companies are facing that, are kind of sort of putting a wrench into being successful or as approachable as other companies who are doing it right? What are some of those major issues that you're seeing? What do they need to change, or what has your advice been to help them turn around and be a little bit more successful?
I think one of the biggest things that I see is that we hear that phrase employee engagement or employee empowerment. And I see so many companies that say, oh yeah, we believe in that, we do that. And I'll say, well, give me some examples, show me how that's at work in your workplace. And typically the example that I get is, well, we have a joint health and safety committee. And we've got people, from every position, every department on this committee. Oh, who runs the committee? Well, it's run by our safety manager. And when I look at the action plan, everything on the action plan is for the safety manager to do, or the HR manager, or a work order that's been put into the maintenance department. But that's not employee engagement. That's not employee
Mhm.
empowerment. To have people show up at a meeting once a month, and look at a PowerPoint presentation of safety stats, that is, you've got a resource that's right there that you're not at all using to the full benefits that you could be getting. And
Mhm.
people don't feel engaged, in that situation, just because they say, well, I go, for 1 hour a month to a safety meeting. So I really believe that if you can, as a leader, really get everybody in your entire workplace working toward the same goal, and everybody clearly understands what their individual role is in meeting that goal, that as a leader is one of our primary responsibilities, I think. And really living and breathing that every day is so
Mhm.
important. And I know leaders who think they do that, but when we start to dig in a little bit deeper, we realize that they're not allowing people to make mistakes. And I'm not saying if something's going to create, a safety injury, or somebody or the company's going to lose, $10,000, I get it. Those are not the times that you want to allow people to make mistakes. But you
Yeah.
really have to do a risk assessment and figure out, when those times really do apply. And if it's not one of those things that falls into that high risk category, that is where the lessons are learned, is when you make mistakes. I know for myself, when I'm coaching someone, I share more failures that I had and what I learned from them than I do the successes that I had, because that's where most of my lessons came from, is when I fell down flat on my nose,
Mhm.
and was embarrassing. And you have to go back and redo and apologize and all of those things, but those things happen, and that's what makes us human. And ultimately, I think that's what makes us good leaders. So you need
Mhm.
to give your team the opportunity to learn those lessons as well. And I think sometimes our egos get in the way as leaders, where we think that nobody really knows how to do it. We've got the plan. We just need somebody else to execute our plan. I think that can be true. There are situations that we as leaders need to make decisions, and things do need to be done a certain way. But there's a whole lot of times when that's not true. We just have to let go of what we thought the right way is, and let people find their own journey.
Mhm. So you're talking a lot about, you know, uh, team and collaboration, and you mentioned before that you like developing people. So, for people who aren't quite getting it and understanding the importance of engaging with your team and the employees that work for you, what is it about employee empowerment and team development that makes it essential for a company's success? Why is that so important to bring people together?
Well, I think that one person just can't do it. I had been brought into a role at one point, and with a new company, and they said to me, "You really have to reduce the cost of product manufactured by 25% over 3 years in order for us to stay competitive." And that's a huge ask. I
Mm-hmm.
was at a facility with about 500 people, and so I realized that for me to meet this goal, I couldn't do it by myself. We had
Mm-hmm.
to meet the goal together. So I appealed to all 500 people, and I said, if you want to come in to work every day and punch the time clock and then do what you did yesterday and go home again, to be honest, I can't afford you. I can't afford to have you here. I need people who are going to come in every day and give 100% and be looking for opportunities for change and be a part of the solution. You guys are the ones that know this business. You know this product. You know what the challenges are, so you know where the solutions are way better than I do. What I will bring is the tools, because I also am a big believer that as a manager, you can't just go out and wave your magic wand and sprinkle fairy dust and say, "You are now empowered. Go forth." You have to give people the support and the tools to be able to be successful. So, um, I've had a lot of experience with lean manufacturing and continuous improvement. And so I was teaching people, those 500 people, tools that they could be using. I gave them the autonomy to be able to, try new things. Oftentimes people would say, come to me with a complaint, and I would say, well, what do you think should be done about that? And most of the time, people will have an idea in their head of what that should look like, and they would answer me, and I'd say, okay, well, how can you get involved in that solution? Oh, well, I didn't really mean for me to do it. I wanted you to go do that. And I'd say, I can't do it all. So I need
Mm-hmm.
you to get involved. Are you willing to do that? And it's funny that most of the time people are like, yes, I would love the chance to get involved with that. And so, I'd say talk to your peers, talk to your supervisor, but let's give it a try. What do we have to lose? And it's amazing how many successes that you end up having. Yes, there's some
Yeah.
failures in there, but there's some successes. So I think that really understanding that, and I did that in that example that I gave you with the company with the cost of product manufacturer that I needed to reduce. And the team was able to do it reduce it by 33% over 2 years instead of 25% over three.
That's
Amazing.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
never could have ever done that. But when you have 500 people working on something, oh my gosh, there's really no limit.
Yeah. So, what sort of tips can you provide manufacturers then? Because, 500 people, that's a lot of people. And I'm sure they don't all have the same personality. I'm sure there's different levels of intensity when it comes to handling certain types of situations. That's what manufacturing is. It's a melting pot of different personalities. And to be a successful leader, I feel like you have to be able to some way accommodate all of that, and figure out how to deal with those personalities in a certain way. Did you have some sort of strategy to deal with some personalities different from other personalities? What would you provide for
Well,
manufacturers?
I think one thing is that I tried to be as consistent as possible for myself. I
Okay.
know that I have bad days like everyone else, but I would be honest about it and say, this is a bad day. I've got a whole lot of stuff going on. Maybe could we loop back again tomorrow, and then make sure that I looped back with that person. I think as a
Okay.
leader, providing consistency is a really good foundation that you need to provide. I think beyond that, though, really listening is so important, and it's such a cliche, but real listening. I try to talk. I do a lot of conversations with my clients when we're doing leadership coaching about communication, because it's such a broad topic, and
Okay.
listening, of course, is a part of that communication. But I tell people there's really two questions that you should ask yourself when you're having a conversation that might be difficult. Is it collaborative, and is it constructive? And if it's collaborative, so you're actually working with someone toward a solution, it's hard to lose in after those types of conversations. Is it constructive? Are we going to get something out of it at the end? Because if you're just getting into kind of a toss the hot potato back and forth and trying to place blame and finger point and all those things, you're never going to be constructive. You're never going to have a solution.
That's
So
so
those
true.
are the two questions that I really try to advise people to think about when they're either approaching a conversation, or even if you're in the middle of one that doesn't seem to be going well, is how can I make this conversation to fit those two categories of being collaborative and constructive?
That's great advice. And then, recently there's been a lot of posts about manufacturing masters, and that's a new platform that Darren Mitchell started. And we've both know Darren, we both know Vince. Great group of guys, really fun to talk to, really caring about where manufacturing is going, not just here in the United States, but also Canada and the rest of the world. And this platform is such a great resource for manufacturers who don't have answers to all of their questions. They have so many different experts, and you yourself are one of the very first experts that they promoted. And that's why I reached out to you. So I wanted to get your insight on why you decided to participate in that platform and some of the stuff that you're talking about to help manufacturers with their operations processes and just, becoming more successful. Well, how was that experience for you?
It has been amazing. When Darren first approached me about it and kind of explained to me how this platform would work, I said, I love it. There's only one thing I don't like, and it's that I didn't think of it first. because I think it's such a creative approach for manufacturers, especially small to medium-sized companies that don't necessarily, have all the resources, to be able to have this library in front of you of all of these different videos from all of these different experts. I just think it's an amazing resource, and they're short videos. They're not videos that are 30 minutes long. These are short videos that actually give you real tips for you to start using immediately.
Yeah.
If you have questions and you want to dig deeper into something, then you've got access to these experts that are
Mm-hmm.
around the world. It's amazing what I'm learning just from being on the platform and watching different experts with different experiences than what I have. Darren had approached me and asked me to focus on world-class maintenance, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's how I started my career many years ago. After I was an engineer, and I kind of moved into maintenance management as my first managerial type of position. Um, and absolutely loved it. And I think there's a lot more to maintenance than just, having a mechanic standing next to a toolbox waiting for something to break down. That is
Mhm.
the old way of doing things. It doesn't engage that person at all. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel good about what they do at the end of the day. They probably have been working on repairs and having all these bosses looking over them to say, when's it going to be ready? Let's go, let's go. That's no fun
Right.
for anybody. But if you can give them the tools that they need, the parts that they need, the time that they need to actually make repairs as they're needed in a scheduled type of a way, instead of just as something breaks down, then hurry up and go fix it and be quick about it. To me, that really is a huge shift for manufacturers to take. So I was really glad when he asked me to do these world-class maintenance videos. And yeah, I've gotten some really great feedback from people on them, because I think it just makes people think a little differently of which category do we fall into. Are we in reactive maintenance? Or are we in, predictive and preventive maintenance,
Yeah.
scheduled maintenance, autonomous maintenance? There's so many different programs that will lead you out of that reactive mode and ultimately drive dollars to the bottom line. I mean, it really has an impact fairly quickly with minimal investment typically, and maximum output that you can get from implementing those programs. So yes, I'm so happy to be a part of Manufacturing Masters, and I feel so blessed that they had asked me to join.
What I like about it and what I compared it to was it's like the Netflix channel for manufacturing. You have, all these different experts with different channels, and it's just a really great place. And um I think it would be really cool for anybody who's on the fence of trying to think if manufacturing or engineering is the space for them to just take a look at the platform, because it does show the diversity of engineering and manufacturing and all of the different opportunities within the sector. It's
Mhm.
not just, math and science. It's not putting things together or fixing things. There is critical thinking, there is problem solving, there's writing. I'm terrible at math. I cringe every time I see numbers just because it's just how my brain works. My sister my sister got those genes, I got the writing genes, but I never thought this sector would be a place for me because of that. I always thought writing meant I was going to be, a professor of some sort or teacher, or, I would have to write a creative book that trended so I could make all this money. And that's not how my brain thinks either. So I think it's a great opportunity to let everyone know that, hey, if you like this, here's this part. If you like this, here's that part. And just the fact that they're including all of the experts' contact information in there for you to directly link to them, I think that's amazing as well too, because I feel some people are afraid to reach out to
Mhm.
people to ask questions, and all of the all of the wonderful people that I've seen, especially you've been willing to say, yeah, I can help you with that. If if it fits your schedule, you can help them with that, and that's really
Absolutely.
great.
To me, that's what it's all about. And, it took me, I think, a little while in my career to understand the value of networking.
Yeah.
But you may not know what resources you're going to need when. And by building your network of people that you trust and have the same values, and that you're like-minded in the way that you think, that you never know when you're going to need somebody from that network. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to be a part of people's networks. And there's times that I may not hear from somebody for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're in my inbox, or I see a text come through on my phone, and asking me to do a webinar, or asking me to, to participate in something. And I really love doing that, because I think we all need to do that for each other.
Oh, absolutely. I posted something the other day with my husband included on it because he's looking for a new career opportunity, and he's like been back and forth with a few options. So I was just like, screw it, I'm just going to post something on LinkedIn and see who I can get. And I got like 4 or 5 really good solid leads for him, and I gave him that information. He's like, how do you know these people? And I'm like, I reached out on LinkedIn. And he goes, what? And I'm like, I reached out on LinkedIn. This is who responded. And he goes, you mean that actually works? I'm like, yes, I've been telling you to get on LinkedIn for a reason. Like, it's a great place to meet people. And he didn't believe it until I was like, here you go, have this information.
He needs to
So,
get his own account now.
well, he has it. He's just not active on it.
Oh,
He has,
okay.
yeah. So he has a profile, and I linked everybody to his profile. But I was like, you better start getting active on it now because all these people that I'm connecting you to are expecting an answer. And he's just like, "What are you doing to me, lady?" And I'm like, "I'm helping you out." So
Well,
it's
that is something that's a real challenge for me as marketing myself. And LinkedIn has made that much easier. I've just always kind of relied on reputation
yeah,
but now that I have my own company, I need to make sure that I'm marketing and letting people know what I'm doing and how I can support and help. And so the only way to do that is to get the word out there of
yeah.
what you're doing. And so LinkedIn has been made that journey for me much easier because it's not something that's in my toolbox at the moment, but I'm getting better.
It's baby steps, you know.
Yeah.
But Kim, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And the last question I have for you, anyone that's considering joining engineering manufacturing, we all know how great it is. You know, it's got its bumps in the roads, but that's anywhere that you go. And I like to focus specifically on women because there's still studies out there that show we're still at a low percentage, and diversifying the sector is going to help all of us with more innovation, more economic stability. So I'm all about recruiting more young women, and I see it in the schools where there's not a lot of girls in the classes either. I did an event, there was 30 students. Out of the 30, there was only four for girls. So I'm really trying to inspire younger women to get excited about this sector because I think it's a lot of fun, and it requires a lot of unique talents. So what would your advice be to the next generation who are kind of on the fence of what they want to do? What would your pitch for manufacturing or engineering be to them?
Well, I think that manufacturing as a sector is so flexible. I mean, there's so many things that you can do within manufacturing, and sometimes I still think that there's that reputation that manufacturing has as being cold and dirty and dank, and just it's that is so not true. I mean, nowadays the technology has just come so far, and again, you get to be part of a team where you're working toward common goals, which is it's a really cool place to be. We all, I think, as humans want to be a part of something. So manufacturing, I think, gives everyone, that opportunity to find the right seat on the bus for them. It might be safety, it might be in maintenance management, it might be in um, uh, continuous improvement or lean. There's just so much that you can do. And as far as the engineering piece goes, again, you've got that flexibility. I mean, you could be doing there's civil and mechanical and electrical and chemical. There's just so many different opportunities. I find that most engineers think very methodically. And so I think to me, that's more important than math. I mean, certainly math is a big part of it. I
Mhm.
remember when my kids would come home from school when they were in high school, and my first question was, "Do you have any math homework?" Because I was all excited. And when they said no, I was like, "Oh, bummer."
Dang it.
You don't have to love math, though. I did, but and do, but I think it's that methodical way of thinking through a problem, as opposed to just kind of just being all over the place, coming up with lots of different creative solutions. Most engineers have a problem and then try to think through until they find the root cause and then put a permanent corrective action in place as a solution. That to me is more important, is that way of thinking. I think the rest of it people can learn. So when people say I don't like math, so I wouldn't be a good engineer, you can learn math, you can learn how to do calculus, but that way of thinking is what's so important. So I do get asked a lot to attend and do speaking, with groups of people, high school students, um, Girl Guides, Girl Scouts, even at that younger age, just to try to show people that their careers in manufacturing and in engineering can be, exciting. I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing now at this stage of my life. That wasn't part of my plan necessarily, and yet, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I got here. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not had those experiences in engineering and manufacturing. had the mentors that I had and all those things that we've talked about.
Yeah. I think mentorship is really important too, just to get kids excited, because if they see that you're excited and you're having fun, they're going to want to follow suit. One of my goals that I'm thinking about for the next year is to actually sponsor a robotics team, like have a Mavens robotics team or something, because I just think that First Robotics is doing such a tremendous job getting kids really excited about engineering and manufacturing. And it's a lot. Who doesn't like battling robots? Like,
Exactly.
it's the best thing ever.
My nephew is on a robotics team, and he's in elementary school. And I think, oh my gosh, those skills that he's learning now, he thinks it's just fun. But in reality, he's learning so much.
Yeah.
And at least he has that exposure when the time comes that he has to pick what he wants to do. So yeah, those robotics teams, those are a lot of fun for kids these days. I'm glad that they're out there doing them.
My son has he's getting really into Legos right now, like Star Wars specifically. So it's not fun stepping on him all over the place, but it's really cool to see like him starting to think, oh, if I put this piece with this piece and I can combine this. And he's only 4, so I'm a little biased. I get excited about it anyways, because it's like, wow, you're putting stuff together. But the youngest one, Ronan, now too, he is obsessed with wheels and things spinning. So he'll like watch cars go by. So I'm wondering if we keep encouraging that, if that's will that end up being, because they're just obsessed with building things and things spinning.
It's amazing what a set of blocks will do for kids.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure my husband just keeps buying them because it's his excuse to play with them too, which is totally fine with me. But I'm pretty sure he's happy to have the 2 little ones because it's his excuse to buy new stuff that he didn't have for it. So. But Kim, I really want to thank you again for joining us on Mavens. If anyone has personal questions for you, or they want to reach out and see if they could be a potential client of yours for consulting or leadership coaching, where should they go?
My email address is kwolfleadership@gmail.com. So that's KWOLF leadership@gmail.com. You can reach out and send me an email. And that's probably the best way. Also LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find there. So I would encourage people to do that. I also have Facebook as well for Kim Wolf Leadership Coaching and Manufacturing Consulting. So you could do a search and find me there. And I would love to link up with people and chat with them and find out where their challenges are. And if it's something that I can help with, certainly that's why I'm here.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Kim. I really appreciate it. For all of those who have tuned in today, if you missed some of the conversation, joined us during the end, please go to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I will have a playback available. And then if you have any questions, reach out to me as well. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you so much. And talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Meaghan. Bye-bye.
Bye. This episode of Mavens of Manufacturing has been sponsored by Z Inc. Solutions. Z Inc. Solutions. This isn't your grandmother's copywriting service. We provide copywriting and copy editing services that provide impactful text and memorable storytelling for a variety of brands and industries. Contact us today at zincSolutions.com. That's z-incsolutions.com.